Welcome back to Disney Journey. Before a spade of dirt turned in Anaheim, there had to be a business plan. And the business plan is what drove the development of all of the parks. And that's the same with Disney Abu Dhabi, their recently announced park. Now, we don't know what that park is, and well, because I don't think anyone really does, but there are some clues. Let's look at Mickey Steinberg because he can provide a lot of guidance. Mickey was brilliant. He worked at WDI and he had a quote that I love. "A building's a building," Mickey said. Now, he may have been referring to this Splash Mountain in Anaheim because he understood that there's steel underneath that mountain. And the idea that a building's a building it carries over to Euro Disneyland. Euro Disneyland, or Disneyland Paris as it's known today, was a park and resort that rose out of the beet fields of Mont-de-Vallée. 5,000 hotel rooms, a full park with 5 e-tickets, a commercial area, a retail, dining. It had the whole enchilada. The project followed a business plan. Disney Abu Dhabi will be built on Yas Island, but it won't be alone. No, because there's already 3 modern enclosed parks there. And they will have years to prepare for the coming of Disney Abu Dhabi. And Disneyland Abu Dhabi, we know, is going to be an indoor park, which is a first for Disney. I mean, after all, in Anaheim, California, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. There was no need to put a dome over the beautiful Southern California sky. But they did have a need to develop a plan, a scorecard of things they had to have, like you need food. People get hungry. They like to shop. And they definitely need to find the loo. They also need parking lots and driveways and sidewalks. This park scope are the dirty dishes. Yas Island in Abu Dhabi already has 3 theme parks. And they're all modern, efficient, and fully enclosed. So that means that Disney Abu Dhabi, when it opens, will not be the new kid on the block. And moreover, the other 3 parks will have years to prepare for Disney before it opens. When I think about Abu Dhabi, though, I have to, I don't know anything because I don't think Disney at this point does, given the fact they're in a concept development phase. But I do have experience and I do have research. So based on that, I find a comparable for Disney Abu Dhabi. And that comparable is Hong Kong Disneyland. Drawing parallels between Abu Dhabi and Hong Kong gives us some interesting numbers. For example, there are 15 food locations in Hong Kong, and there are 11 shops, retail locations. And of course, you gotta have your toilets, and there are 17 in Hong Kong. When you look at the numbers and you compare the total population around Abu Dhabi and assume it's about the same market that you'll be drawing for the total population in Hong Kong, you end up with a like for like. And that allows you to build a business program. Because whatever you need as far as the attractions, you got to have places to eat, places to shop, and the places to, Yas Mall is huge. It's modern. It's expansive. It's a showcase for all the Western and Asian brands that you would expect to see in a modern, thriving metropolis, such as Abu Dhabi. And the Imagineers have thought about, and actually did, some indoor concepts for a theme park. We look at Epcot Center, the original Progress City, and think about what might have been. And some of what might have been became what is. But turning back to the other parks, starting with Tokyo Disneyland, you start to see where they don't have a utilidor, but they do have a shelter, a roof, that's covered but non-conditioned over their World Bazaar, which is their version of Main Street USA. Turning our attention to Disneyland Paris, the Imagineers living in Southern California don't like to be wet, and they assume that nobody in Europe wants to be wet either. So 2 parallel arcades flanked either side of their Main Street USA. Again, that does have some covered condition to it because, they flank the shops, and they're warm. But it allows you to go undercover all the way back from the ticket booths to Peter Pan at the back of that park. And there are 2 arcades. Now, one of them, the one that goes to Peter Pan, penetrates even further. But both will keep you out of the rain. And the sun. Now, the sun is not the issue in Paris, but it will be the issue in Abu Dhabi. It was never the issue in Anaheim, although we do get hot here. But there was no reason to put a cover over Anaheim. And they chose not to put one over Hong Kong. But they are going to be putting one over Abu Dhabi. Man, it's going to be hot. The announcement's up. As you drive around Yas Island, you'll see these signs. And if you look outside of your car, you'll be seeing where they'll build it. It's flat, it's dry, it's desert. And there are 2 issues to think about: culture and climate. They both play into the plan. Projects fail for all kinds of reasons, but that's not a bad thing, because if you don't try, you'll never possibly succeed. Maybe in a failure, all you get is experience that you can apply to the next attempt. Disney as a company has tried a number of times on various occasions in various locations to build covered venues, fully enclosed venues, and even a fully enclosed theme park. When Michael Eisner, who was then CEO of the Disney Company, stood before the Burbank City Council, he was there to explain his idea and WDI's idea for a Burbank mall. There was a piece of vacant land in the city of Burbank there against the Interstate 5. And the idea that Disney had and the Imagineers had was to create a retail and dining place. That failed. There is a mall there. It's not very nice, but they moved on. They moved on to Epcot Center. This was going to be the second theme park there in Anaheim, California. Westcott was inspired by, but not a copy of Epcot. It was divided into 2 zones. Their future world lay behind a wall. And behind that wall was all the good stuff that they'd be building. It was nondescript, but it led you to a covered condition show building. Massive, massive in scale. Around it was World Showcase. These were grand plans, not to be realized. No, instead, we have California Adventure. Yeah. There is no such thing at a Disney Imagineering as a good idea ever being abandoned. Not really. So when the time came to develop Tokyo Disney Sea, their land, Mermaid Lagoon, well, they put it in a box. And it's our closest equivalent to what likely is going to be happening in Disney Abu Dhabi. There, Mermaid Lagoon is a fully conditioned, environmentally sealed show space with a theater, multiple rides, play area, retail, dining, food. Did I say food? Yes, food. And it's spectacular. Mermaid Lagoon checks all of the program requirement boxes. It's a tall, high bay space with multiple rides, shows, and attractions. And it's a template that works. It's successful. And very likely what you see here in Tokyo will be seen again. The lesson is never cheat at solitaire. And we don't need to, because now we have some real program numbers to work from. We have the land available to us on Yas Island, and we have Mermaid Lagoon. We can fit, 10 Mermaid Lagoons in an area that's really pretty small. We also have some equivalents with Warner Brothers World. And you look at these numbers and you go back to the land that's available for Disney and you look at Mermaid Lagoon and you get the idea that there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, Charles Little said there'll always be more land. There'll never be more people. I'm going to pause here for a moment because I already hear you writing comments asking me, what about the USS Disney, the Disney park on a ship? And I'm going to tell you right up front, it's not a good equivalent. You can't build a program for Abu Dhabi based on the ship. They're just too dissimilar. The intentions are the same, but the way you have to build the program is so different that it's just not a useful tool. So now moving back onto dry land, we end up here in downtown Disney at Walt Disney World and the story of DisneyQuest. Now, DisneyQuest was probably the best example we have because it truly is not like a Mermaid Lagoon, which is a land in a park. This is a full park. And it was elaborate. It had a hub, it had restaurants, toilet, retail, lots and lots of things to do over multiple floors. And it was successful. In fact, it was so successful that they opened several. And they had plans to open more. When we look at the plan, we start to see how this thing is organized. Because there are multiple venues. Some of them are small interactives, some are, actually rides. And they leaned heavily into the technology of that time with attractions like Cyberspace Mountain, which is a small simulator that guests could get to program. And they had a version of virtual reality, which every time I would use it, my neck hurt. But regardless of that, they did have a downside because you got to keep refreshing DisneyQuest. And you have 4 walls, so you have to build out in order to build new. The dirty dishes were done for DisneyQuest. There was a business plan and it worked. It absolutely worked. They opened one in Florida, they opened one in Chicago, and they were successful. They planned to break ground in the one in Philadelphia, and they even had, notions of building a 4th. Had those 4 been built, then the shared cost of any game development would have been spread across those 4. But as we know, that did not happen. And as a result, DisneyQuest, as good as it is, or was, ultimately closed. Which meant that piece of the business plan never got to be realized. DisneyQuest Anaheim Downtown Disney was on the docket, and there's still a piece of land available. The success and ultimate failure of DisneyQuest is fascinating because it's a quest, pun intended, of the Imagineers to create a perfect theatrical show space. When you're telling a story, you really do want to have perfect light control, perfect sound control, get rid of that pesky weather. And now, finally, in Abu Dhabi, the opportunity to create that has emerged. We do not know yet what it will look like, not at the detail level, but we do know there's going to be an indoor theme park with the Disney name on it there in Abu Dhabi. How much inspiration it draws from the original first Epcot, the World Showcase version, we do not know. Or even the second version, or the third version, which was Westcott. The history of DisneyQuest is important because it's fascinating. Yet it also has another function, which is to point us to a future, one where we might finally get a version of Progress City. That brings this Disney journey to a close. But I can't close this episode without acknowledging those of you who've joined Disney Journey, because your support really helps make this channel possible.